This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Is there a sports podcast in Detroit that people are talking about?
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Doc and Jock podcast. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Adam's here. What's up, cuz? What's happening?
Dude, how are you feeling right now?
Man, it's like one of those things where I had a cold, I got over it, then the kid got a cold, and you know me, I love hugging on all my kids. My kid gave me another cold back, so I feel great. No fever, but in the headspace, I feel like crap. Stuffy nose, that pressure you feel when you're not feeling the best. But I took the Wall-Fed, the Walgreens version of Sudafed, and my nose is running and all that good stuff, but I'm here.
I'll say this about you, right? I don't usually pay you too many compliments. Actually, I do. I pay you quite a few. But I know when we're doing this podcast, I sit there and I verbally assault you at least, I don't know, 55 to 90% of the show. I will say this much about you. You are an incredible dad. You do love your kids, and you are very affectionate towards them. I think it's awesome to watch you with your kids. Hopefully one day I could be as good of a dad as you are.
Now, the one thing is funny is when you're hugging them and all of a sudden the kid just kind of head back and
no.
in the kid filled the glasses and I'm like, no, I knew it.
No.
I knew, yeah. And
at that point, you know your
like,
battleship is sunk.
And you know the numbers, like 7,000 germs just hit my eyeglasses and my face, and I'm like, whatever. And I pride myself, I usually don't get sick, but this is about it. Usually for me, it's just the head cold, no fever. It's just yesterday was bad, man.
You do realize you jinxed yourself, right? Because I was dealing with that cold, and you're like, I'm usually pretty. I was like, dude, take care of yourself. Don't get sick. I don't want to get you sick, so I didn't like. Normally, when we wrap up the show, we sit there, and I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret here. When we wrap up the show, we normally high five each other. We give each other a little hug, and we wish each other a good rest of the week, and usually see if we need to do anything for each other or for the podcast before we take off and go our separate ways.
Oh, you're gay.
Yeah, well, it's what it is. Anyways, I told you, I said, take care of yourself. I was like, don't get sick, don't touch me, just stay on that side of the room. If you have to, Lysol the entire area where I was sitting. And you're like, no, I'm good. I don't usually get sick. I'm okay. I got a strong immune system. Everything else on me is kind of weird and weak, but I got a strong immune system. Now look at you, 2 weeks in a row.
I feel like I'm part of the club, though. Everybody's getting sick.
Everybody.
It's hard around Michigan. Then you got to deal with the potholes.
It's like AIDS in the 80s, dude.
Deal with the potholes and dealing with getting sick. What are you going to do? And then you look around the landscape of Detroit sports, and you see what teams like the Pistons and Red Wings are doing, and it just seems
making
like
you more sick.
It seems like the moves that are made from the teams that we support. And I think that when you break down, and we'll do that right now in terms of what the Red Wings did when they traded Petr Mrazek, I think what people are mad at, not the actual trade itself, it's just gotten to the point now where fans are like, this is what our players are worth. Third and fourth round picks. This is the culmination of what happens when you don't draft properly, when you don't scout properly. And I do believe that fans want to value the players that we got, but it just seems like in the recent moves that Ken Holland has made, all we can get is third and fourth round picks. And many people that don't agree with the trade of Petr Mrazek to Philadelphia will say, look, why did you do it 1 week ahead of the trade deadline? The trade deadline is not till next Monday. You could have at least had Mrazek play against the Preds, who he had success against. Did you not see when Petr Mrazek last played Nashville? He did well. He got the win. He's had success against Nashville. I would have said, let Mrazek play against Nashville, then trade him. But nope, they pulled the trigger, and I think people on our Twitter page just were not happy when they saw the return. But I do believe once they see the particulars and the emotion passed, I'll share a couple of the funniest because I put on our Twitter page, what did you think of Ken Holland in one word? I think the best one was, can I use fucktard? And I said, you wrote it. I think it's funny. And I said, oh, okay. But a lot of people responded, not happy with Ken Holland. But I felt like, okay, the organization knew that Mrazek wasn't going to sign here. He was going to command north of $4 million. They had to get something for him, but I understand that people just weren't happy with 2 conditional picks, but it could turn out to be a second-round pick if Mrazek plays well. I'm okay with the deal. The one thing I would say is the return's okay. I would say you could have held your cards a little bit closer to the vest and maybe, drive up the price by having another team come in, maybe like the Islanders, or maybe wait at least until Monday, because in 3 or 4 games, in 3 or 4 days, another goalie could get hurt. And all you need is that second team, another opportunity, and Petr Mrazek could have then maybe gotten you a second rounder automatically, not a conditional pick.
I think the major issue everybody has isn't so much what they got in return. It was the way Ken Holland went about getting what he got in return. Now, if you look at what the Philadelphia Flyers have going on, Brian Elliott, their goaltender, he's out 5 to 6 weeks due to surgery right now. So their number one goaltender is on the shelf. He's on the shelf for a good long time. Then Michael Neuberg, their backup goaltender, he's on the shelf. So why are you going to go ahead and trade your goaltender to them a week in advance? Let them sit there and suffer through it a little bit. Make them work. And then you can sit there and maybe put the screws to them. Try to build some leverage for yourself. It seems like Ken Holland hasn't been able to, pull the old okie doke on anybody in forever. It really feels like you've got a guy who just kind of sits out there and he's kind of a headpiece for this organization, but he doesn't know what he's doing. And I think the big issue is there's a lack of confidence in our general manager now. This is the guy who took all the responsibility and took all the credit for bringing Stanley Cups here, going out and drafting guys like a Nick Lidstrom and sitting there and working out crazy contracts where you were able to keep Steve Yzerman in tow year after year after year after year. And this is the same guy who took that credit for trading a guy like a Pavel Datsyuk and getting out from underneath that contract. And now you're starting to kind of see the cracks in the facade here. I think at this point, it's becoming very apparent to me Ken Holland wasn't the one who was pulling all those strings when this team was winning Stanley Cups. It seems to me that was more of a Scotty Bowman and a Jimmy Devellano type moves that were being done in the background. And Kenny was the guy who was out front, who had to take the bullets when the media was upset about something or when the media had questions. But it seemed like it was those two guys. And then when those guys left and you won one in, 2008? When you won that one, it was more of a holdover and kind of whatever was left from that old mix that helped kind of facilitate that and help you win that last Stanley Cup. This does not seem like Ken Holland has any idea on what he's doing.
At the very least, in the salary cap,
except writing a check.
Cap era,
that's all he can do.
He gave way too many long-term deals to guys that are not producing, and that's the problem. Franz Nielsen, you look at Helm, you look at Abdelkader, they're not living up to their contracts, and you're holding on to guys you're holding on to the veterans way too long in terms of Zetterberg should be gone, and I think that's what people are really upset about is that they're waiting way too long to tear it down, and they don't believe in what he's saying in that when you tear it down, a good general manager doesn't take 10 years to rebuild it. They should have recognized, they should have torn it down maybe 4 years ago.
You were playing for a streak, so you start giving away players who are actually turning into something decent now. You give away those players to get in aging veterans who, in the end, don't do anything because they either A, can't play, or B, they get hurt as the season progresses. You end up just kind of limping into the playoffs anyways just to get blown out in the first round. It makes no sense. As we break down this trade, the Red Wings give away Petr Mrazek, and they had to still retain 50% of his salary. So what that basically means is the Red Wings picked up 3/4 of Mrazek's salary this year. So Philadelphia, what's salary? $4 million. Philly's only going to pay basically $1 million for their now starting goaltender. On top of that, they get 2 conditional picks. All right, that 2018 4th round pick, it may become a third. It's got a real good chance to become a 3rd round pick. That's if the Flyers make the playoffs, and I do think they have a good chance to make the playoffs, and if Mrazek wins 5 regular season games. I think all of that is very possible. I think that's all very likely. More than possible, very likely. Now, it can become a 2nd round pick if the Flyers win 2 rounds of the playoffs. I don't think that's very likely. And if Mrazek wins 6 games. I think you can win 6 games, but I don't think that it's very likely that the Flyers are going to get by those first 2 rounds. And then it's a conditional 2019 3rd round pick. That's if the Flyers decide to re-sign Mrazek, which I don't believe they're going to. They've got Neuberg, who they like, who's been in their system now for a while, and they've got Elliott, who they like, who they just signed. You're not the 2019 pick is null and void.
Exactly.
You're not going to. You're basically playing. You're hoping that you can sit there and maybe get a 3rd round pick for Petr Mrazek.
Exactly.
If you would have waited, maybe another week, the Flyers could have been in all sorts of turmoil. A lot of these conditions could have fell off because they'd have been more desperate to make a move, and then you could have maybe gotten something a little bit better. Maybe you get a draft pick. And maybe there are some conditions attached to it, but maybe you also get a prospect. Maybe it's not a high-level prospect. Maybe it's a mid-level prospect. Maybe you get a guy, something that you can maybe package later on in a trade to get something better. I don't know. I just feel like Ken Holland, it seems like everybody gets the better of him all the time lately.
And the issue that people have as well in terms of the Red Wings and their goaltender situation is, why did they give up on Petr Mrazek? Why not try and move Jimmy Howard? Because of the fact many people do believe they're pretty close, but maybe with the slightest of edge going to Petr Mrazek. So people are like, well, now you have a situation where going forward, Jimmy Howard's the goalie and he's fragile. Any given moment, any save, you got to be careful that he doesn't get up. So then you're going to count on Careau to take over the rest of the way? So people kind of on our Twitter page and once the move was announced, kind of debated, what is Petr Mrazek? What does he bring to the table? Did he do enough from what you saw this season to warrant being traded? Because people definitely honed in on the fact that Vegas didn't take him in the draft last year because of the fact they were acquiring a bunch of talent to try and flip it, which meant that they looked at Petr Mrazek as a guy they could not get any value for. So I do believe Mrazek took it seriously and tried to get himself in better shape. I do think that he tried to change the perception that he was a malcontent in the locker room. But in the end, I just don't think that he fit in with the Red Wings scheme, and I'm okay with them moving him. But at the same time, when you look at the future, I'm not really thrilled with Jimmy Howard and Careau, and I know there's goaltenders in the pipeline waiting to come up, but going the rest of the way with Jimmy Howard, a little nervous.
For sure. And you're absolutely right. If I was to come to you and say, hey, I've got a younger goaltender who's a little bit more athletic and has the potential to be sensational, or do you want the older goaltender who tends to have a bad groin and is solid most nights? Which one are you going to go with? You're going to go with the younger one who has the potential to be sensational. Now, I understand if you were to trade Jimmy Howard away, you're probably not going to get as much as you got for Petr Mrazek. So what that says is you've got 2 bad to subpar goaltenders here, and that's on Ken Holland. I think we all agree that's all on Ken Holland at this point.
You can do better than that.
That's right. You can do better than that. I think the Red Wings themselves, as an organization, and more specifically Ken Holland and maybe even Jeff Blashill, soured on Petr Mrazek last season. That's why you've seen him unprotected when it came time for the expansion draft. That's why he was basically put out there, and they let those rumors go out there, or they let all that talk go out there about how he's a malcontent, how he's not in shape, how he's kind of a locker room cancer. He ends up not getting picked up by Vegas. He stays with the Red Wings, and I think he, too, soured on the Red Wings. I think at this point, he went into this season like, you know what, I'm here on a one-year deal. I'm going to do everything I can do to make myself more marketable for a team that's out there. And I think that's what he did. I think he's going to have a very good rest of his season in Philadelphia. Don't be surprised, because I think he wants to stick it to the Red Wings.
Is there an opportunity for us to call Seattle and tell them how great Kenny Holland is so that they can really believe that? Because across the NHL, many people are believing that Ken Holland has a great reputation. And if Seattle wants him, I'm of the opinion, you know what? Your time here is done. Move on and try and do something different with another organization. Look, you give him credit for the Cups, whatever role you want to give him in terms of how much credit. But in the end, he was part of the management team that brought a lot of success to the Red Wings. Give him credit, but in the salary cap era, it's been abysmal. And he did, basically, when you write the book on Ken Holland, the last stretch in the last 5 to 6 years, in terms of the deals he made, they weren't good enough for the Red Wings to come back. He decided to close the window way too late. He's hamstrung the organization for probably the next 4 seasons. You can't come out there and say that it takes 10 years to rebuild. If you're a good general manager...
Dude, the only way it takes 10 years to rebuild is when you're handing out 7-year contracts like they're freaking hotcakes.
Exactly.
That's the only way.
And you take the wrong dudes and you give way too long of contracts to guys and you hold on to dudes way too long. So in terms of the general manager game, no one's sitting here saying it's easy, but we can tell that Ken Holland got worked by a lot of people and he gave deals, long-term deals, deals that most people were not giving to guys that are not producing. And that's why when you look at it now, it's unfortunate that the last 2 seasons, you know what, cuz we're sitting here, the Red Wings, the last 2 seasons, it's hard to conceive they're sellers.
Yeah.
They got to unload Tatar. They got to hopefully unload Green. You hope that he can make some better moves going forward. But right now, as we sit, I think you and I are both a little bit nervous that when the trade deadline comes and he's got to make these moves, we don't think that he's going to come out ahead on pretty much anybody outside of Green. Probably you get a first or second for Green. Everybody else, you're looking in that third, fourth round area for a lot of these guys, Tatar, Nyquist, and anybody else that is going to be traded. I'm not confident sitting here today that Ken Holland's going to make a move that we're going to be like, yes, good job.
Right.
Good job, Kenny H.
I think at this point, Ken Holland is a prehistoric dinosaur caught up in what used to work and not what works anymore. I heard a rumor and I heard a story going around that Glendening, there was a call for Glendening. Holland was offered, I believe it was a fifth-round pick. Holland rebuffed the fifth-round pick and said, no, I want a higher pick and I want a prospect. Do you realize that Luke Glendening on any decent team, not even a good team, a decent team, a team that's kind of in contention for one of those lower playoff spots, is maybe a fourth line player?
Right.
But you believe so highly in what you've done with this talent, and most of it hasn't developed the way you want it to, that you want more than a fifth-round pick? Like, if somebody calls me and says, hey, I want Luke Glendening, I'll give you a fifth-round pick, I'm going to say, okay, cool. Because the guy is a fourth-line grinder. That's what he is. He goes out there and he plays a role. He's not a superstar. He's not a guy who's going to sit there and be able to bring you back anything of wealth that you're looking for. Like, you want a prospect for that guy? Get the hell out of here. And this is the big issue with Ken Holland, is I think he's so set in his ways and he believes what he has done by drafting the guys that he has drafted, that they're going to turn it on and they're going to be something incredible. They're not. They're not able to succeed at the level in Grand Rapids because they can't get out of the AHL and get up to the NHL and make an impact. What you've done in the past isn't working now. You can't just... The thing about the Red Wings that was so great is there was like this mystical lore about what they were doing and the way that they were able to draft. Because you were able to go out and you were able to pull a guy like a Sergei Fedorov out of communist Russia and get him here underneath the cover of night. That's cool. That's awesome. It shows that you're ahead of the game. And the way that they scouted Europe for so many years, it gave you a leg up and it gave you an advantage. That's how you were able to procure guys like a Nick Lidstrom. The league caught up to you. The league now does that. They're able to go get guys out of the KHL if they want them. They're able to go to the top leagues in Sweden and Finland and Germany and in the Netherlands and in Denmark and grab those guys and bring them over here. They're able to do that now. Back in the day, the Red Wings were one of the only organizations that were able to go out there and do that. That was it. League caught up. Now, on top of all that, you can't just write a check and bring any old body in here. You want the best offensive defenseman out there. It's not, 1993? You can't go grab a Paul Coffey just because you want to write a check to somebody. Doesn't work like that, bro. It's not how it gets done. It's a salary cap era. So now you got to trade equal parts and pieces here, and everybody's got to make things fit underneath the salary cap. You're not the only team out there anymore that can have a bloated salary of like $123 million. You got to rein it in, and you got to start doing it with your own talent. And I think that's where this team is now starting to fall short, and you're starting to see that. I mean, when I say, hey, who are the stars on this team? I get crickets. Yeah. I get crickets because this team has 0 stars. 0 stars.
This is bad.
It is. That you have no stars on this team, and you haven't had any stars on this team for a long time. I'll argue with you, the only star that you've had in recent history is Pavel Datsyuk. And I don't even know if he was a superstar. I know that he got a lot of attention around the league because of the things that he could do with the puck and with his stick and the way he skated. But I don't even know if he was considered a superstar the way superstars are considered superstars now. I don't know if Pavel Datsyuk in his prime, you could put him on the same pedestal as a guy like a Sidney Crosby, put him on the same pedestal as Connor McDavid over there in Edmonton. I don't know if you could put him on the same pedestal as a guy like an Alexander Ovechkin even. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's Pavel Datsyuk. That's the closest thing you've had to what would be a superstar, because Henrik Zetterberg's not a superstar. I'm sorry to break it to you guys. He's not. Okay? And Nyquist and Tatar, they've not panned out the way you thought they were. If you were to tell me who is the closest thing you've got to a superstar right now, I tell you, you've got nobody. Nobody. You know who are some nice pieces? And that's what they are. They're nice pieces. You need somebody else to go with them. They're nice pieces. It's an Anthony Mantha, and it's a Dylan Larkin, and it's an Andreas Athanasiou. Those are nice pieces, and that's all you have. On good teams, those guys are filling out your second line. They're not first-line players. And those guys, those are your stars on this team. That's where the issue is. You're seeing a breakdown because you have nothing in your pipeline anymore. Your pipeline, what used to be so rich, and everybody talked about how everybody was over-ripened, it's all dried up. It's all bad fruit. You need to blow it out. What you need is a new general manager in here. I don't think Ken Holland's going to be here next season, and God, I hope he's not.
Do you think the writing on the wall, Ken Holland and Jeff Blashill hit the door, hit the bricks?
I think they both have to go.
Yeah.
If one goes, the other goes.
Yep.
I don't see how you can keep them.
Exactly.
It's not even so much that Blashill's a bad coach. I think he might be a decent coach somewhere else. I just think these guys have tuned him out, and I don't think whatever worked in Grand Rapids isn't working here.
With the too many men on the ice penalties, with the lineup, with the lack of consistent offensive production, it just doesn't seem like, I guess, the way most people are putting it is, who's gotten really better? Who has improved their game? Nobody. Everyone's kind of plateaued, and they're a collective group of guys that just go out there. And it's really unfortunate that the Red Wings and Pistons in their inaugural season at Little Caesars Arena have put such a crappy product on the ice. I mean, my goodness, you're going to go out there and see them versus Carolina in the coming days here, and it might be empty. You might have a chance.
I'm just going to be hammered. Let's be honest. I'm going to be hammered. I'm going to get my dad drunk, and he's going to have a good time, and I'm going to be hammered.
Exactly.
That's the only way I'm going to be able to bear it, man, because it's going to be a bad product. It's not going to be a fun game to go to. And I've been looking forward to this since December. Just not going to be any fun.
Unfortunately. Yeah, that's how it goes. All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back. We got to talk about the Detroit Tigers. My goodness, Bovada has set a number in terms of wins. We got to talk about Miguel Cabrera and what he's likely to do in 2018. And we'll talk about spring training next on the Doc and Jock podcast. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc and Jock here for our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic. We've recorded 800 to 900 weekly podcasts since 2013, and we've only used one host site. Why do we use Podomatic? Super easy to use. Adam and I, verbal warfare each and every week, and then we take the great audio and we upload it to Podomatic. Within 5 minutes, we generate a great link so that all of our supporters across the country and even across the pond can listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. That's why we grew this from a basement podcast to an office here in Sterling Heights. We wouldn't have been able to do it without a great host site. So if you're starting a brand new project, you're listening, and you're saying, I could do that. I can do a podcast every week. We're going to recommend all the hosts here on the network. We're going to recommend one host site, Podomatic.com.
Every time I hear this song, I just want to cut a promo like Jinder.
It's kind of weird ahead of spring training where there's not really that much buzz. I mean, people are trying to find some storylines to talk about, but it's tough, right?
If you go to freep.com or you go to detnews.com, they are trying to spit shine some turds.
Oh, my God, right.
Oh, boy.
What are you saying?
Oh, boy. There's this thing in here about how Dixon Machado is going to bring power. I was like, are you serious?
Right.
Like, do you know who Dixon Machado is? Who are you talking to? You obviously are talking to non-Tiger fans.
Exactly. The only bit of smack I rolled out there with was Brad Galley had a picture and was like, everyone's looking kind of relaxed out here. Al Kaline is out here watching. I'm like, yeah, everyone's relaxed. They all know they're going to lose 100 games. Who the hell cares? I mean, you're sending a whole crew. You could have saved the money. My God.
Oh,
take the reports from the AP. Right. What are you going out there to see? Oh, my God. Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? Ron Gardenhire has a whole new system. We like his organization. It is funny.
They got pictures of Gardy with his glove on his head.
Yeah.
He's out there sitting there throwing BP to cats.
Exactly.
Oh my God. It is bad, dude.
Nothing, right? It's nothing.
Bad.
It's one of those seasons where it's kind of fun actually to kind of roll this way with the Detroit Tigers because nobody expects squat. You
do realize that summertime is going to suck brutally for us. You understand this.
Not really because
it's going to be bad because there's only so many times we can come on here and rant and rave about the Tigers. And what else do we have going on in the summer?
Well, we can talk about the draft.
About the grass growing.
The Lions. We'll talk about Michigan State winning the national title. We'll see what the investigations involve, what comes out of the investigations.
Okay, now let's fast forward everything to, I don't know.
April, May?
Well, no. Let's fast forward to like June, July, when there's absolutely nothing going on.
Yeah, we'll be talking about
It's going to be bad.
We'll have to bring some of the topics from things going on in our lives, man.
Oh, man, we're going to have to.
We've done it before, so it'll be good. There'll be national news. There'll be things like that, but
there's going to be only so much ranting I can do this season about your Tigers.
You think you're going to be ranting a lot? You're going to be
yes, they're going to be awful. They're going to be horrible. I don't know, maybe not.
But going into it, you know,
I already
right?
know. Yeah, I already know. So maybe not. Maybe I'm just going to be like, well, that's what it is. You know what? I'm almost positive, though. There's going to be something that's going to occur in a game where I'm just going to end up bringing like that anger and that fury. And I'm going to want to punch my TV. Right. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it'll be. Something will happen, and I'm just going to be so furious that it's going to just boil and stew in me for like 4 days. And then I'm going to come in here. We're going to do this podcast, and I'm just going to like just let the microphone and you have it. I feel bad for you.
No,
you got to listen. You got to listen to people bitch at you all day long. That's your job. You sit there and you listen to people whine and cry about the problems, and then I come in here and I whine and cry about Detroit sports. What is going on? You are a strong, strong man. You are tough, dude. Mentally, you are tough. I was going to say physically, but that is not the case.
Not yet.
Not the case. You keep dropping those LBs, though.
We'll try. So what do you make of Bovada? Because people are looking at, okay, the first thing they're looking at with the Detroit Tigers is, okay, what's the over-under on the win? And let's see how many wins they can get and maybe put a little bet down. But Bovada put the over-under at around 68.5 games. Third worst in Major League Baseball, only ahead of the White Sox and the Marlins. What do you think? Do you think they go over 68.5 wins? I think betting money-wise, I would probably go a little bit under.
Didn't you pick 69?
I did pick 69.
But that was more jokes, right?
That was joking around.
It was because you do her and she does you, right? Okay.
Nice.
Right.
I think it's going to be 65 wins, I would say, if I was going to put money down.
Yeah, honestly, man, looking at this, I want to say over. I really want to say over. Because I want them to be decent. I'd love to see Michael Fulmer take that next step forward. I'd like to see Daniel Norris get it together. And Jesus Christ, if Jordan Zimmerman could just be healthy for, I don't know, half a season, 3/4 of a season, I think we'd all do a dance with no clothes on, just greased up with baby oil. It'd be awesome. I don't think that's going to happen. It's got to be under, right? It has to be.
It's going to be tough.
Like,
right?
I don't think they're going to lose 120 games this year, but I don't think they're going to win 69 either. It's got to be, like you said, man, maybe 60, maybe 65. I don't know, 60,
somewhere in the 60s, right?
Yeah, like I want to say low to mid 60s. I don't see it. So you mean to tell me that you're going to bring back a year older Victor Martinez, whose heart is now, I don't know, fixed from he had like an irregular heartbeat? Like those just don't get fixed. Not unless you have a pacemaker put in, you know? And you didn't go through and put any pacemaker in the guy. Instead, you sent him on a sabbatical and you're like, just go relax. And it is because he was more of a locker room cancer than he was anything else. That's why you sent him on sabbatical. And then you got Miguel Cabrera, who's got baby mama drama. Like it is bad. Like I'm waiting to see this guy on like paternity court. And just one of those like random whack-ass TV judges sitting there being like, you get $15,000 a month, and you get $15,000 a month, and you, sir, you're getting a vasectomy because you are impregnating way too many crazy Hispanic broads. So you just need to go get chopped. I don't know. I mean, that's what you got for bats. I mean, honestly, those are your bats. Old-ass Victor Martinez, who has no cartilage left in his knees and was a cancer last year. Miguel Cabrera, who's got baby mamas coming out of his ears. And what else? What else do you got? You got nothing. You got Dixon Machado, who's bringing power. Where? Where is he bringing power? I mean, is that guy doing a couple cycles of steroids? Is that how he's beefing up for the regular season here? I mean, honestly, do you realize Dixon Machado is going to be your starting second baseman? And do you realize they brought in some guy who they just gave a contract to, like, hey, we're just going to bring you in for spring training and hopefully you challenge Robbie Rodriguez? I mean, he's got a cool name to say. That's all. Like, this guy is a nobody. He's like an MLB whatever.
With the season looking abysmal, we know it. What can fans, if they want to look on the bright side, what can they look to try and get through 162-game seasons? Because I'm of the opinion, look, you got the number one pick this year in the draft. Go for it again. I think the goal should be to tank. I don't care what Tony Clark says in regards to tanking and his thinking that, look, 12 to 15 teams are going to the race to the bottom. Look, the Tigers got to do it. They got to rebuild. The biggest problem is I don't trust Al Avila and his blinking ways to go out there and pick the right guys, because if he goes out there and makes moves, I'm not of the opinion yet. I'm skeptical that Al Avila can go out there and find the right talent. He's going to go out there and try. He's going to try and tank, and he's going to try and put a really bad product out there. But in the end, do you trust him to go out there and rebuild this. That might be the issue, in that Al Avila's tasked with going out there, finding talent, drafting really well to help this team come back and get to where they need to go. But there's not really a lot of positives other than looking for development from a bunch of young guys, and hopefully Michael Fulmer stays healthy. You have a lot of hope that a lot of guys can take a little bit of a step, but I think the best thing to do is just go all the way with it. Lose 110 games, go out there and secure the number 1 pick the next couple seasons and go with the notion, look, we're tanking, but the other part that makes people scared, and that's why they don't want to tank, is they don't trust Al Avila to go out there and pick the right dudes.
Do you ever hear him talk?
No,
you ever hear Al Avila talk? It gives you no confidence. When this man speaks, it makes you scratch your head and say, what? Yeah. What did he just say? Like, he messes up the own players on his roster. Like, these are guys that you either A, drafted, or B, scouted, or C, signed. So you should know their name. You were the one who helped. You were an instrumental part in getting that contract set up for these guys to sit across from a table with you with an ink pen in their hand and write their name down, and you still mess up their name. Blows my mind. No, he gives you zero confidence. And every time he opens his mouth, it's like he inserts his foot, and you just sit there and you scratch your head, and then you scratch your ass, and then you smell your finger, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? Is this Bizarro World? I feel like it's Bizarro Land. It's nuts. He gives you no confidence, and you're absolutely right. What you have to look forward to, if you're a Tiger fan, you need to look forward to something this season. The one thing you need to look forward to, see if Michael Fulmer can get through the season healthy, and if he can build on what he's already done in his early young career, okay? You need to see Daniel Norris take a step forward. You want to see some of these younger guys like a Shane Green maybe take a step forward. All the guys that you got when you traded away everything that you had, anybody who's going to be playing up this season, you want to see them take a step forward. I think what would be more interesting if you're a Tigers fan is watch the Mud Hens. Watch the Mud Hens, because that next wave of guys who are supposed to make an immediate impact on this team, they're there. You want to see some development from those guys from the beginning of the year to the very, very end of the year. I myself am watching to see if Ron Gardenhire can manage a bullpen. Can he manage a bullpen? Now, he has talked about how his main purpose for spring training and what he's trying to do is figure out who his bullpen arms are, what they're going to do, and he is dedicating and focusing a lot of his energy towards the Tigers bullpen. So all that being said, I want to see if he can manage his bullpen and he can squeeze a little bit more life out of what is usually the Achilles heel and what kills this team every single season, the Tigers bullpen. I want to see what he can do with that. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot to look forward to. I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Fulmer's traded at the trade deadline. It wouldn't shock me. I'm going to go out there and say it right now. If there's somebody out there who's willing to take on Miguel Cabrera's contract, wouldn't be surprised there either. If somebody is willing to take on Miguel Cabrera's contract, it'll probably be the likes of maybe a Boston, and you're probably going to have to eat half of that contract. But it wouldn't surprise me because Dave Dombrowski loves himself some Miguel Cabrera. But those two guys being moved wouldn't shock me in the least bit. And if you move those guys, you better get a nice haul in return.
How concerned are you regarding Miguel Cabrera? Dude's making $30 million off the field issues. You see that he's going to be in court trying to address this. Do you think it's going to affect him? Or, when you look at him, looks like dude's been hitting the weight room, looks like he's lost a little bit of weight, but he always comes in to spring training looking a little bit good, and then throughout the year, it looks like he kind of adds a little bit of the weight. But
by
it
the
looks
time
like
July rolls around.
But the big thing is, though, whenever you talk about an athlete making that much money, and you say to yourself, wow, he's got the biggest issue that an athlete can have is that it's a back. So he's got to do more stretching. It can lock up at any time. Dude's making a boatload of money, but I guess I would ask you, over under, do you think he plays 130 games this year?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Does he get on the field and produce for the Tigers? When he's on the field, I do believe he'll be productive. Problem is, dude's getting older, bad back. Can he be productive? Is this the Miggy that's going to be, someone along the line that's going to be stealing money? Or is he going to come back and show that, hey, you guys all counted me out. Look, I don't care about, shelling out $20,000. I'm making $300K a week. Who cares? You know what? In the end, I'm going to make a boatload of money in a lot of different ways. It's a distraction. You all want to talk about it. But the big thing is, when you talk about the Tigers, you talk about Miggy. And if at least he's hitting, it'll be entertaining to go out there and watch the Tigers. But if he's not, he's not on there, and he's just like, 5-game injury here and there on the DL off and on, it'll be a big problem. So how are you making Miguel Cabrera, and what do you think is a realistic expectation for the dude?
Wow, and you put it at 130, eh?
130, it's good, right?
Did you check out baseballreference.com or something?
No, it's a fair number.
That is a fair number. Last year, with all of his injuries and everything he had going on, he played 130 games.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you, did you take a look? Because, dude, that's like, you set the over-under, like, perfect, right? It's so hard to pick. Like, which way do you go here? Because if you're going to say, hey, how many games do you think Biggie's going to play? You'd probably say, oh, maybe 130. So that's perfect, dude. Wow. Way to pull that number out of your behind. With all of the injuries that he's had over the course of his career, and they're all starting to really catch up to him now. Like, the last couple seasons, I mean, he's been so injury-plagued, whether it be his ankle, his back, his arm, his shoulder. It's always something. His knee. I'm going to say under. I'm going to take the under. And I think 130 is an awesome, fair mark to put it at. Like when I say I'm blown away that you just picked that number, I'm blown away that you just picked that number. I'm going to say he probably plays 123 games. And I think it's going to be a real similar issue that he had last year. I think it's going to be his ankle. It's going to be his knee. And I think a lot of it's going to then lead to his back. Because if you have a problem with your ankle, you have a problem with your knee, the next problem that you have is either in your hip or your back. And I think that's going to flare up those herniated discs that he's got. And he's got two of them, not just one. One, you can usually kind of stretch it out a little bit. Two of them, I mean, good God, man, you just multiplied that problem by 2. So good luck there. Dude, herniated discs are nothing to joke around about. So I'm going to say under. I'm going to go 123 games.
123 games?
Yeah.
Okay. Will he be productive in those games that he's in?
I think for the most part, but I'm not expecting a regular Miguel Cabrera season from him, you know. Miggy usually sits there and hits right around 317 to give you about 30 home runs and something close to 100 RBIs. I'm not expecting that. It'll probably be another down year for him. I'm going to say maybe 25 home runs, probably about 85 RBI, and I think that's more because of the talent that's in front of him. I don't think he's going to have enough guys on base to get to that 100 mark. And his batting average will hover around 300. It'll probably be closer to 295, maybe 290-ish. And I'm guessing you'd probably take that, right?
100%,
if I was going to say, hey, this is what you're going to get from me, you'd probably say, yeah, it's not too bad. I'd take that. But it's just when you look at how much he's getting paid and you look at what he's done over the course of his career, you're kind of like, wow, that's really, it doesn't move the needle. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're paying way too much for a player who is obviously on the decline. And I think that's the big issue that fans are going to have with this Miguel Cabrera contract as he grows older.
Knowing that we got a new manager, I do think that people are going to be excited to kind of tune into what Ron Gardenhire brings to the table. I do think the Tigers are going to look organized. I don't think they're going to look out of place. I don't see mistakes being made over and over and over. The one concern I have with Ron Gardenhire is the fact that he's not going to be overly reliant on numbers. And in this day and age, it's 2018, you hate to go into a season thinking, dude, our guy's a little bit behind the 8 ball. Now, it's not going to be a lot. Dude's got a lot of experience. I think it's an upgrade, maybe 15% over Brad Ausmus, but across the landscape of Major League Baseball, I'm a little bit upset that I do believe our manager is like maybe 1 or 2 steps behind, 1 or 2 beats behind everybody else in terms of using the numbers. And I do think that if there are people out there that are going to look critically at how he makes decisions, I think there's going to be a handful of times when he's going to make decisions that the numbers say you shouldn't make. And in this day and age, the Tigers, the part that's so frustrating is they're just now starting to use the numbers. Dude, seriously? They should have been starting when we started this podcast.
Doesn't it bother you, though, that all you heard about, like in most of the offseason leading up to the hire of Ron Gardenhire, was how they're now going to change to a more sabermetric type organization, how they're going to sit there and they're going to start spending more money on getting guys in the right positions to sit there and really build out this part of their organization. They're going to take this more futuristic, numbered approach to how they do everything, from their scouting to the way that they're building their internal office to the way that they're going to be signing guys and bringing guys here as free agents. And no longer are we going to go out there and we're going to sign and pay for overpriced free agents who had great years in previous years. We're now looking for the guys who are going to have great years going forward. So we're going to go to the bushel bin and we're going to find guys who we can plug and play and are going to turn into superstars here, like a guy like a JD Martinez. And then you do a whole 180 and you bring in a guy who was just like the manager before the manager who you just fired. A guy who is rooted in old school baseball, does it more by the gut, doesn't really pay a whole lot of attention to those number thingies. And look, I'm going to lay down a bunt when I got to lay down a bunt, and I'm going to swing free when I got to swing free, and by golly, it's going to work out 3 out of 10 times, and we're going to call that good. What? Look, man, the safe play is to do it this way, and you're going to do it totally opposite of that? What are we talking about here? And I just feel like this organization has an identity crisis. It doesn't know what it wants to be. You know what I'm saying? It's like a white kid living in suburbia who wants to be a black kid. You know? It's like, what are you doing? Pick your pants up. What's going on here? You have no idea what gangster rap is.
And then you look across Major League Baseball, and you got all the buzz with Boston and the Yankees. My goodness, they got the Yankees. They got 2,000 people watching batting practice with Stanton and Judge. It's awesome. It's going to be nice to see other teams. So this year,
they're going to come here and they're just going to rake.
Yeah,
both of them.
I believe that, across the Major League Baseball landscape, you obviously know the teams that are spending money, like the Dodgers, like the Cubs, like the Houston Astros, like in the American League, like the Yankees in Boston. They're going to do some things. So it'd be nice if you peek across Major League Baseball. At the same time, as Tigers fans, we got to sit here and just kind of take our lumps. We wanted this, so now we got to live with it. And I do believe the fans are going to punish the Tigers this year. The attendance is going to be really bad, but hopefully there's a chance to lower the ticket prices, get out there really on the cheap, and just watch some baseball without the expectation of winning. So I'm not as angry as you are. I know they're going to lose a bunch of games. I just want to see that Ron Gardenhire is not a boob, and I just want to see that there's progression with these guys, and maybe, just maybe, that you see enough of a progression that you can move the likes of a Castellanos and a Fulmer and start to maybe speed up the rebuild, whereas right now I kind of think it's a 3 to 4 year process. You make that great move with Michael Fulmer, and you might get to maybe just speed it up by a year or two, and maybe just this season and next season, maybe by 2020, we can have some success. So we'll see. It'll be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not as angry. We know what it is. It's just funny in that you're right. When we started this talk, is that they got to sell hope. Each and every year, you got to have reporters go out there and, tell the stories and tell about, we got a new pitching coach. What can he do? Really, in the end, across any sport, really, you look at it and you say, do we have enough talent to compete? This year's Tigers team has nowhere near the right amount of talent to compete. And maybe they'll shock the world. That's the best part of sports, is maybe they'll have no expectations and they'll go out there and win 2 out of 3 ball games and maybe make a push to try and get to the wild card game, and that would be really shocking because nobody has no expectations for this team. And if they were, it'd be a great story.
How would you feel if 3.5 years from now, Ron Gardenhire is still the manager of the Tigers?
I would say that then he's pushing towards the playoffs. He's shown development with the young players, and he's done some things to help this team. I mean, I think that a guy like Ron Gardenhire is going to be given every opportunity to stay. I don't think they're going to just blow him out, but we do know now kind of that I think at the forefront of this whole experiment with Ron Gardenhire, that he is the stopgap. He's the guy that's going to help maybe take these young cats and turn them into what they can be. And then right when they get that potential, then you go out there and you get that young, hot manager that can take you over the hump. Or maybe the experienced guy like AJ Hinch, who's not happy with Houston and he wants more money, and you go out there and you poach a winning manager from somewhere else.
If 3.5 years, he's still your manager, I think that bodes well for the Tigers. And you got to remember, he signed to a 3-year deal, so that means he would be entering into his 4th year. And at that point, you've got to say whatever it is that they've got going on, whether it be players coming up from the minors or whether it's the way he's coaching or putting players in position, would hopefully be working, and that'd be the reason why he'd be sticking around, and they're not looking to sit there and move on from him. So if in 4 years or 3.5 years he's still here, I think that would bode well for the Tigers. I don't know if it's all going to be what it's cracked up to be, but I think it would bode well for the Tigers.
One final timeout. We're going to come back. We're going to play a round of Jock Jams. I got a lot of things on my mind, and Jock is ready to deliver. But a quick tease, there is an advantage of being sick, and I'm going to tell you what it is after this quick timeout. Thank you, everybody, for your continued support. We greatly appreciate it. We couldn't keep the microphones hot, the studio lights on here in Sterling Heights without your great support. How do you support us? Free and easy way is just visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's the hub of the operation. It's where you can go to find out what show airs when. You can support us, support an independent broadcasting network by clicking through the online banners all over the website. Take care of all your online shopping needs by just making one quick stop to DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You can buy Detroit sports tickets. Thank you so much for your continued support. Each and every week we get a chance to check the numbers. Everything is trending upward. Great guests love to visit us. It's a fun time to be part of this network, and great things are ahead. Always, Adam and I are working hard to, make this a really successful project, and it's really fun to have those that are messaging us saying, hey, put me on. Hey, I want to do a podcast with you guys. It's great to check my email every day because so many of you are recognizing, wow, you guys are making a lot of noise around here on the interwebs, and I thank you so much. Free and easy way to help us keep this project going, visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. So before the break, I said there is an advantage to being sick. And now many of you are listening going, what's that? You take time off? No, it seems like you're still showing up to the studio, still doing your job. But when I get home, when you get a chance to go home, have the wife make you that chicken noodle soup, you get the tea, there's something really fun about just sitting on the couch, wrapped up in blankets, and watching some Netflix. And so I got the chance to do that the last couple of days. And I have to play this because it was so funny. Dave Chappelle, when people came out and were like, dude, you made $30 million for a couple specials? Dude was so funny. He put me in such a good mood with his latest Equanimity and The Bird Revelation. They are so great on Netflix. I just can't not play it. This is just a quick little clip from the Dave Chappelle recent special, Equanimity. Now, he did it in 2 parts. There's 4 specials on Netflix with Dave Chappelle. Each of them are broken down into 2-hour specials. And so this is the latest one, and this is from Equanimity. It's really funny. I just love comedy, and it's one way to make you feel good. This is the funny part, just talking about society and what he thinks where we're going as a people.
Oh, my God. But there's a more important reason that I would stop doing comedy right now. And this reason is the real reason that's been percolating, and it really is the crowd, not you. I'm talking about the crowd on the big stage. It's too hard to entertain a country whose ears are so brittle. Motherfuckers are so sensitive, the whole country is turned into bitch-ass niggas.
He's right.
Right?
He's so right.
It was literally, I spent the day just watching 4 hours of this dude just spit it out there, and he was so funny, weaving stories.
I love Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle.
I miss him.
Worth every penny. Obviously, I rate it very highly. It's
Fuck
just
your couch.
It was very funny. Equanimity, The Bird Revelation. Check it out. They're just an hour each. It's well worth your time. It's when you're sick and you're not feeling good, laughter is the greatest medicine. If your ears are brittle, you're probably not going to like it because he talks about race, transgendered issues, but he's funny. If you go into these things being all sensitive and you're a bitch ass, then it's not going to make you laugh, and I don't like people like that. If you can't laugh, let alone at yourself or at what people say, if you're really going to go out there and complain to a guy like Dave Chappelle, he don't care. He cashed a check. So don't be a bitch ass. Enjoy these comedies. Really, I think that's what makes our podcast fun, is that we don't care about the brittle nature of what people think about what we say. And so it's really kind of fun to do this project, but I had to rate it. It was just so funny, and I knew exactly. I tagged it. I'm like, dude, this is the funniest thing I've heard in a long time. And Chris Rock did a special, not as good. I was really disappointed. It was pretty much okay. It was funny. I did laugh, but Dave Chappelle knocked it out of the park with his specials, man. Netflix is great.
Dave Chappelle's awesome, dude. I miss him. I miss the Chappelle Show. Chappelle Show was so good.
It was, wasn't it? Oh man! But he talks about it. He talks about why he left, and in the second part of that special, he talks about why he left that much money on the table. It's well worth your listen, and maybe one day I'll play it. But he talks about it philosophically, and he said it. He said, "I did leave for a reason," and he went into it philosophically, and really good stuff.
I'm gonna check it out.
Broke it down. All right, this is what we call Jock Jams. I got a lot of questions lined up for the Jock, and I know he's ready to deliver in what we call Jock Jams. Kind of tying into, the sensitive nature of what, people are receiving and how they're receiving information. Laura Ingraham and LeBron James kind of got this feud going on, and people are talking about it. Again, there is a big sentiment. There is kind of a divide in terms of, hey, what is the role of a professional athlete in terms of speaking on political matters? Some people say, hey, look, stay in your lane. Just be an athlete. Don't go out here and talk about political issues because you don't know enough. And others say, look, do not discount what an athlete can say. This is an individual that went from, really struggling in his life to basically being worth $1 billion. And that's an individual you got to talk to because that's the story of America. So why would you shut down a guy like a LeBron James who's come so far from where he's at? But there is a segment of society, and a rather large segment of society, that doesn't want athletes to speak on their political views. What's your take on it, and what do you make of this whole Laura Ingraham versus LeBron James feud?
I think athletes, especially athletes who are like LeBron James, like you're a megastar. You're not even a superstar. You're a megastar. You cross over. You're not just an athlete. You're also a guy who's in movies. You're a spokesman. You wear many hats in the world. I think you have an obligation to sit there and talk about different things that are going on socially, and you have an obligation to bring these up and just kind of shine a different light on them. You know, this is something we talked about, having a podium almost, having a stage where we can sit there and we can talk about different things. And there have been times where we have utilized what we have here as a podcast to sit there and shed light on things. I know when my friend Dave passed away, we sat there and we shed some light on suicide prevention and suicide awareness. When there was we had that rape case that was going on with where was it? I think it was in Stanford or at Harvard. I can't recall exactly off the top of my head. I mean, we sat there, we shined light on that. I feel like if you have the ability to help further a cause, or there's something that you're passionate about, you have that obligation to do that, because you've got that stage. You've got all these microphones in your face. People are asking you these questions. You have the right to answer them. You know, it's not like LeBron is just sitting there in front of his locker stall and just basically preaching. He's got media members coming up to him asking him questions. So if Laura Ingraham has an issue with anything, it should be the media members who are pointing the microphone in his face and asking him the question. You know, if you don't want to hear what he has to say, go talk to your media people. I think he has an obligation. This is something that Michael Jordan never did, and something I think Michael Jordan should be probably held to a greater standard for. Michael Jordan was just there to sell product. That's all he ever did. He never got involved socially, never sat there and took any action for his community or communities that he lived in or was a part of. All he did was sit there and sell shoes and sell product. That was it. He was all about the bottom line, which was making $1. I think LeBron, and I have a lot of issues with LeBron, and it's more LeBron the player than LeBron the person or LeBron the political activist. Yep. It's more just he has every right to sit there and speak his mind, and if somebody's going to ask him a question, hey, welcome to America. You have the freedom of speech, and just go ahead and use it, dude. Exercise it.
Now, I think you know what I'm going to play next. One of the fascinating aspects of the NBA All-Star Weekend is obviously the dunk contest, the skills competition, the game in and of itself. They did make it more of an entertaining spectacle with giving the winning team $100K versus the losing team $25K. So it made it for an entertaining fourth quarter. I didn't watch all that much, but by all accounts, all reports, it was much better than in years past. And that's what you got to try and do, is keep people entertained. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is somebody does something that overshadows the entire weekend. And I'm going to play this, and I'm going to try not to laugh, but I cannot believe a professional singer tried to execute something by singing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
This is bad.
What's so proudly wave at the twilight's last gleam.
Oh no!
Bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight.
This was the best part of listening to this, was the reactions of the players. Draymond Green had a gif for the ages. This was garbage. Why did you do this?
I think she tried to make it sexy.
Why?
Here's the thing. I watched the beginning of the All-Star game, watched the first half, and I caught the whole pre-show, everything that led up to it. I watched this. I remember when this was going on, we were tweeting each other. I had no idea what the hell was going on. I looked at my buddy who I was sitting across from, and I was like, is that Fergie? What is she doing? I think the best reaction to come out of all this was Charles Barkley being like, I need a cigarette after that.
It's
like,
so bad.
She tried to make it sexy and tried to do something different, and I don't know why. It's the national anthem. You don't need to be sexy with it. You really don't. Oh, boy.
Yeah. It's like,
I have no idea what she was trying to do. She tried to put a different take on it. Hey, cool for trying something new, but it's the national anthem.
Right. When you rehearse this, do you not have handlers? Like, I think when people get to a certain level of success, then maybe they don't have enough.
Wait for it. Oh, no, that's not it.
It's coming up, right? I know what you're thinking about. But when right, it's funny. When you have a handler, does nobody tell you, dude, you can't, this is garbage.
So bad. The players were the best, though. They would just, everybody was laughing and smirking. People in the stands were like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Oh.
Mercifully, it ended.
Yeah.
And then she tried to kind of offset it. Oh, look at this. The more you hear it, I've heard it like a dozen times, it's bad.
So bad. Right there. Let's play the basketball. Oh, how about no? Go away, Fergie. How about no?
Thumbs down.
Oh, dude.
So where does it rank in terms of all-time busts singing the national anthem?
It's got to be one of the worst, right? I can't remember one that was that bad. Like, you know what? Carl Lewis is probably the worst. If you ever get a chance, go on YouTube and Google Carl Lewis singing the national anthem at the Philadelphia 76ers game. That was so bad, he had to go get a girl out of the stands to help him sing. That's probably number one on the all-time, what are you doing? This is horrible national anthems. This probably is 2 or 3. Ugh. It's got to be. That was so bad. Honestly, look at the players' reactions, dude. They're players dying. Are like, they're like, what is going on? Steph Curry, dude. Steph Curry was like burying his face in his shirt because he was just trying to hide his face because he was just laughing. He was like, what is this? It was so bad. It was so awkward.
Switching gears here. We got to talk about it. Everybody in town is kind of looking at it.
Speaking of bad and awkward.
Yes, it's ESPN versus Michigan State. You're a journalist, so you have the opportunity to kind of weigh in. You are a journalist. You always will be when you have a degree in journalism, so you know the foundations of what's supposed to be ethical and what's not. And many people, in terms of the media here in town, are like, whoa, rewind here. ESPN is kind of skewing their reporting to make it look like Michigan State is doing something that they're really not. And so many journalists in town have said that by ESPN releasing the name of an individual who has yet to be accused, who's only being investigated, that they crossed the line royally in terms of trying to further their agenda. They've been called unethical. They've been called a biased news organization. And for me, knowing that people have complained about ESPN for years, not really news, but I do understand the side of those people who are critical of the media by saying, look, how on earth is there oversight when you allow Paula Levine to do this in terms of her reporting? What did you make of it, and what's your take on ESPN versus Michigan State in terms of the reporting that we've seen now in the last 10 days?
First off, ESPN's totally out of line here. Totally out of line. And I'm a Michigan fan, so anything that can hurt Spartan Nation, I'm usually for it, but this is crossing a line, okay? This is uncalled for. Like you said, the issue is it comes down to ethics. It's always, is this right or is this wrong? That is the question that's being proposed here, and this is wrong. And this is wrong because this the student athlete has not been charged with anything. So there are allegations. I can make allegations against you that are totally unfounded and can be proven totally inaccurate and false, right? All I've done is besmirch your name for a little bit until everything is proven otherwise, and I look like a total idiot for making those allegations, and that is what is going on here. Now, if everything comes to light and the student athlete is proven to be wrong and is he's found guilty of whatever took place, okay, cool, fine. Then you can report his name all you want. You can sit there and say, hey, we had this at first, we were right. But the way you're going about it, it's to get clicks. It's to sit there and drum up turmoil. You're trying to capitalize on the issue with Larry Nassar. You're trying to capitalize on the shitstorm that you brewed up with Mark D'Antonio and Tom Izzo. And we talked about that, I think, 2 weeks ago, how ESPN is kind of out of line for doing all of that. It's one of those things that if you're a journalist, this is one of the fundamentals that you are taught immediately. You have a class. You have a ethics class when you're going to get your journalism degree. And this is in there. They talk about this. And this is kind of what's happened with society with technology and social media. You got to be first before you got to be right. And this screams of trying to be first and not necessarily being right, because they are totally in the wrong here. This drives me absolutely insane because ESPN for the longest time, or I've always looked at ESPN as being, for the most part, credible. I always liked, especially Outside the Lines. Outside the Lines to me was always one of those shows where they did a little bit more investigative reporting. They looked into things. They brought different facts to the forefront, and they usually came at it from a different perspective. And at this point, they're just trying to get eyeballs, trying to get views, trying to get clicks, trying to get, I'm guessing, revenue sharing for their advertisers is kind of what this is starting to look like to me. To go out and sacrifice your ethics as a media establishment, it's totally wrong. This is a company that is transitioning, I think, from being what used to be a news organization for the most part, a broadcasting partner of different sports entities, to now becoming more of an entertainment type of company.
It's biased. It's biased reporting, and it's not the number one goal of journalism is to seek facts, seek the truth. This is not seeking the truth, and there's been great reporting when people have looked into it and said, look, this is what's actually going on, and done a thorough job. But here's the biggest problem. We live in a 24-hour news cycle, instant gratification. They need their clicks now, and unfortunately, the Michigan State story needs maybe a good year to fully investigate it and flush out what's going on.
I mean, but the problem here is there's an ongoing investigation, and they're coming out, they're naming a player,
right,
and they're basically claiming he's guilty before he's ever been proved guilty. I mean, do you realize that this student athlete, he's probably not going to go to the NBA. So when he goes on job interviews, somebody Googles him, you're going to find this. This ruins his life going forward. It could be nothing, and it could be something. If it's something, okay, fine. But if it's nothing, what did you just do? What did you just do? Were your clicks that important that you just ruined this person's life? You know, and everybody's like, oh, well, you can sue, you can sue. Well, you technically can't, because they've done nothing illegal. What they've done is something that's unethical. So there's the difference. You know, it's one of those things. You see it with big corporations all the time. They do unethical things all the time, and that's what this is. They've done nothing illegal. They've just done something that's very unethical.
All right, to end Jock Jams, I'm definitely fascinated regarding Michigan basketball. Obviously, I support Michigan State, and I think big things are ahead for them. Right now, Michigan State is the co-Big Ten champion, and if they win their next game at Wisconsin, I believe, on the road, then they have the chance to win it outright. But I'm fascinated regarding Michigan hoops because it's a really fascinating team. It's a team that obviously had a big win, a top 10 win versus Ohio State. Their win helped Michigan State to become co-Big Ten champions. So I like the makeup of the Michigan team, but the biggest thing when I see them and watch them from afar, you get a sense that's a boom or bust team, that you could expect them, that the range of success can be anywhere from an early exit all the way to making the Elite Eight based upon their shooting and defense. It's a team that's probably, Beeline's had better talented teams, but they can shoot lights out. They can get hot. They can do some things. They've had some marquee wins. They beat Michigan State. They beat Ohio State. They've done a lot of great things. They had themselves a decent year. What do you make of Michigan hoops, and what's the ceiling for them going forward now, later part of February into March? What can Michigan hoops accomplish this year?
That'll be the 2013 National Championship Michigan hoops that we're talking about here. That's right, Louisville.
Oh, when I looked at it, it looked vacant to me. There was no title holder.
It is vacant. Damn it. Such BS. Such a good game, too. Anyways, you're spot on, man. This is a boom or bust team. This team can be out in the very first game they play, or this could be a team that's going to make some noise, and I could possibly see them getting to a Final Four. I think a lot comes down to this team's free throw shooting, especially late in games. It's been a bugaboo for them all season long. It comes down to if they're going to play defense that game or not, and if their threes fall. I think they have a very good team the way they're built, and I think if they get hot and they go on a run and their jumpers are falling, they're going to go to the Final Four. And from there, it's hats off, pants off. It's whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You're going to let the pieces fall where they may. But I think a lot is going to come down to how this team is able to close out games. Because there's going to be some close games where they're going to have to go to the line. They're going to have to win it at the free throw stripe. They haven't shown consistently this season that they're able to sit there and do that and win games.
John Beilein, as a coach, I feel is a little bit underrated in Michigan. People obviously recognize that Michigan is a football school, but he's done some things from where they were. He's been there for quite a bit of time. He's been tenured, and it's a team that he's got a system. He works the system. He gets players. They do improve. The program seems to be very clean, and John Beilein seems to be like a really solid role model. Why do you think he's so underrated and so mild-mannered and not really looked upon as really one of the great college basketball coaches, because even before he came here, he made some noise in the tournament, I believe, with West Virginia.
Mm-hmm. I think he's just underappreciated. When you're in the same state and you're in the same shadow as a guy like a Tom Izzo, a guy who's won the big dance, regularly makes the Final Four, usually goes on long runs, I think it's hard to break out of that shadow. This is the whole Nick Saban at Michigan State, Michigan type deal. It's just on the other shoe in a different sport. Nick Saban didn't want to be a part of Michigan State football because he felt like he was in the shadow of Michigan all the time and couldn't break free of it. And I think Beilein has kind of done it a little bit different. He's gone about his business, been very quiet, just kind of goes out there and he puts decent teams out there. He puts out a competitive product every year, but every couple of years he bubbles up and he looks like he's kind of got some traction and he's got a team that looks like they could go, to the Final Four. And he does this every couple of years, similar to what Izzo does, but Izzo is just much more high profile about everything and much deserved for him because he's a great head coach. It's just, I think he's in the shadow of Tom Izzo. That's why you don't hear as much, He does a very good job recruiting the players that he needs for his system. The thing is, he's a system coach, right? So if you find a way to bust the system, they're going to lose. They don't have, I think with the way Tom Izzo gets guys and the way Tom Izzo does things, he can roll out different fronts, he can roll out different systems, he can roll out different ways to beat you every single week. I think with Michigan, look, we play this style of basketball. We're going to do it this way. And if we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. And that's what it is. I don't think Michigan has the ability to kind of alter the way they win games. It's just kind of X, Y, and Z. And if X or Y fall, they can't lean on Z to win a game. And that's just kind of what it is.
Gotcha. Very good podcast. Great round of Jock Jams. You brought the noise. Very good stuff. Anything else on your mind before we get the hell out of here and I can blow my nose finally?
No, man, I think I'm good. I think everything is
wrapped up, buttoned up tight.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Detroit Red Wings going forward as the trade deadline approaches on the 26th. So I'm interested to see you there.
Team Tank, baby. That's Tigers, right. Pistons, Red Wings. You got to embrace it. Unfortunately, where you're at is in a disappointing spot. We keep talking about it, but at the same time, if you embrace it, if you do it properly, then you can get your organization back on track. Unfortunately, that's where it is that I do believe that across the board, basically, those three organizations, new management's needed. Tigers need a new general manager. The Pistons need a new voice. I don't believe SVG has done enough. I think that when you see the talent that he left on the table and did not take, it's really overshadowing the team that you do have. You got the Red Wings and Ken Holland. I think that in the next coming maybe 100 episodes of this podcast, we're going to see a complete flush with three of the four major organizations. And just in 2 years, Bob Quinn's the most tenured dude, and he's the dude with probably the most cachet right now in Detroit. And so that's why the Lions, even though they got a new coach and they're looking at new things now, the other three, they basically, to start over, got to get new management and really focus in on getting the right talent to get this moving forward. It's basically stuck in the mud, and they got to get new management to get themselves out of the mud and move forward.
I agree with you 100%, man.
All right, let's get out of here. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see everybody next Thursday. You know it. Doc and Jock will drop a podcast each and every Thursday. We've done well over 230 episodes consecutively since 2013. We greatly appreciate it.
Let's go, Ken Holland. Don't screw this up. What's his name? Over there in fucking Edmonton. Connor.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.